Good afternoon. Good afternoon, councillors. Welcome along. Members of the public, welcome. Officers, I declare this meeting open. Under announcements, councillors, from time to time we have a number of emerging projects that do appear, and in the past we have had members of council work with our officers on some of those emerging projects to help us progress reasonably quickly and thoroughly to the point where it becomes an item that's brought to our attention here for decision making. So I'll be sending out an email later this week inviting elected members to nominate if you wish to be involved in working with our officers on some of those emerging projects. I'll list those projects. I've had discussions with the Deputy Mayor and the Acting CEO. If any of you think of any other emerging projects you'd like to nominate, please do that. And let's see where we go to from there. But it's another opportunity for us to get more involved in setting direction for our city, facilitating and getting out of the way. The declarations of interest are already listed on the agenda paper. Are there any further declarations from anybody? We don't have any questions. Confirmation of the previous minutes of the council meeting. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Cook, Councillor McGuinness, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. We have the minutes of the Bunbury Roadwise Committee. Someone prepared to move? We note them. Councillor McCleary, Councillor Steele, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. Do we have any petitions? Councillors, we have requests for various deputations tonight. The first one is on behalf of Dr. T.A.N.J. Faso for Mr. Roger Veen to present on item 10.4.6. Those who support that, please indicate. That's approved. We also have on the same item 10.4.6 requests from E. Clute and L. Ulsthorn for Rebecca Ulsthorn to speak. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. We have a request on item 10.4.7 from Merge Design, Mr. David Prosser to present. Those who agree, please indicate. It's approved. And item 8.1, we have a request from Ms. Kelly Despotakis to speak. Those who support that, please indicate. That's approved. So for those who are unfamiliar, what we do is we get to the item and then I'll invite you up to speak and then we debate it and make a decision on the item. So when we get to your items, I'll invite you up. You have 5 minutes presentation. Councillors, coming out for further consideration, 10.21 requires an absolute majority. 10.4.1 we have various impartiality interests. 10.4.3 financial interest. 10.4.4 deputation. 10.45 impartiality interest. 10.46 deputations. 10.47 deputations. 10.48 financial interest. And 10.51 requires an absolute majority. So it doesn't leave us with much, but does anybody else want to pull it any further? Councillor Steck?
Yes, please, sir. Can I have 10.2.4, please?
Anything else? Someone prepared to move the balance? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Hayward, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. We go to item 10.21 requires an absolute majority. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Steck. Seconder, Councillor McGuell. Likely to be any debate? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously, thank you. We'll move to 10.24. Prepared to move, you're moving the executive recommendation, seconding it. Thank you. So Councillor McCleary moves, Councillor McGuinness seconds. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since signing the official friendship agreement with Nan Trang in December 2nd, 2015, both cities have been developing a genuine positive friendship relationship. Nan Trang have demonstrated their desire to actively seek out opportunities for collaboration between our two cities. For example, delegations have visited Bunbury, and I, on behalf of the Mayor and as the then Chair for the International Relations Committee, along with David Kerr, President of Bunbury Geograph Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Lynn Farrell, Dean of ECU, and Melissa Taper, English Lecturer of Mania Senior College, visited them this year on their invitation to enjoy their biannual Sea Festival, a huge tourist event of hundreds of thousands of people attending, nothing that we would ever experience. At the opening, we were surprised to see the Australian flag flying high at the festival, and at the opening and closing of the festival, the Bunbury delegation were thanked for coming. There was even an Australian float in the parade, complete with moulded kangaroos. On a more serious note, discussions occurred in relation to exchange teachers coming here. Planning is in place. The Dolphin Discovery Centre and the Oceanic Institute found that they had similar interest in southern coral seagrasses and are keen to share information in the future. Nan Trang will be welcoming the Bunbury City Band and had offered support with transport, a translator, and have organised various places for them to perform. I do not doubt that they will be welcomed most warmly on their arrival and during the entire stay. Nan Trang is proving to be a proactive friendship city. Tonight we have the opportunity to show our support, to say we are concerned and empathise with the difficulties they are experiencing after Typhoon Demray devastated their city. Helping each other is what friends do. It builds strong bonds. Nan Trang relies heavily on tourism. In fact, they struggled for many years, like we have been doing, before developing a very successful international sea tourism trade. Local businesses in the area will be suffering. What do we give? How much money is enough? In Eastern cultures, it's not about the amount of money, it's all about the gesture. There were 40,000 homes knocked down. There are over 1 million people in Nan Trang. We could never afford to give enough to make any real difference, but a small donation, given as a token of goodwill and understanding, will be received most graciously and remembered with deepest gratitude. When you're on the receiving end of a disaster, such as losing your home, clothes, and a place to cook your meals, when someone reaches out to you with the message, "We care," you carry on no matter how difficult the circumstances. Let us not get bogged down with the politics and policies and end up sending the wrong message, "We only look after Australians." Use your discretionary powers, councillors, and make an exception. Vote for this recommendation and demonstrate to all that the City of Bunbury cares for its friendship city, Nan Trang, in their time of need. Setagaya gave to the Yarloop fire appeal without a second thought. Let us follow their unquestionable, generous and perfect example of friendship with their sister city, Bunbury. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGuinness.
It's a tough act to follow, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Peter McCleary said that very well, but look, I will just say that this is a gesture of goodwill. It's $3,000, and there was some questions last week about amounts and that sort of thing, but I agree completely that this is a gesture of goodwill and of friendship, and I think there's $100,000 in that reserve currently, and I think it's up to us to show that we care about something terrible that's happened, and I think it's an opportunity to do so, so please support the recommendation.
Thank you. Speaker against? Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well, I don't think there's any doubt that we support in principle the notion of helping out with overseas disaster relief. But I must say that item 10.24 doesn't adhere to the words spirit or process of Council Decision 4711, and that's of concern. I'll also foreshadow an alternative motion at the end of this, Mr Mayor, in case this one is, or in the event that this one is voted down. The Council Decision 4711 established the Disaster Relief Fund, and for those who were here back in those days, it was to provide personal hardship and or relief from personal hardship and distress arising from natural disasters. It was indeed, there's only one or two, three in the room that were around at the time. and the establishment of the Permanent Disaster Relief Fund through Council Decision 4711 was specifically about Council's intent, the Council Chamber, the Council, to establish an acceptable method and structure guided by an administrative policy by which funds could be collected, accrued and distributed to disaster relief without being subject to an ad hoc process. And contrary to what Councillor McCleary said, you must have some sort of policy and process about the way you go about these things. So most important were parts 1 and 4 of the eventual Council Decision 4711, and the important bit is that a permanent disaster relief reserve fund be established by the City of Bunbury to provide relief of personal hardship and distress arising from natural disasters occurring within Western Australia and Australia. It was a previous City Council that gave this long, hard thought to get away from the ad hoc process where somebody, unfortunately, there's a disaster somewhere else and somebody, in a moment of generosity and compassion, puts their hand up and said, well, why don't we donate to this as well? We specifically said Western Australia and Australia because it's ratepayers' money. And that the Disaster Relief Reserve Fund be administered by a committee of council comprising of the Mayor, Chief Executive Officer and 1 councillor. And that has been the practice in the past, and that's why it was put there by people that were previously councillors. Now, the proposed use of the Disaster Relief Reserve Fund is specifically by resolution for disaster events that occur within Western Australia and Australia. And this is contrary to the spirit and contrary to the word of the original resolution. And there's nowhere in item 10.24 is there anything to suggest that the application for a donation to Nha Trang has been through the process that was appropriate. Instead, it's come straight here, and let's face it, we're all generous people and we'd like to help out, particularly seeing it's one of our friendship cities. And I also support the notion of helping out, but not from this disaster relief fund unless it is changed. Somebody has to come along and say, right, put your hand up for policy, good policy, because that's what we're about here, good policy. If we're not going to follow policy, well, we might as well throw them out the door. So the alternative motion to keep things rocking and rolling here is that the council make a donation of $5,000 to the province of Nha Trang from the 2017-2018 budget surplus. So, councillors, I ask you to vote against 10.24 as it's been written in the executive recommendation, and support the alternative motion, which is slightly more generous given what's occurred there, but it follows process, the process that a previous council put into place to say that our disaster fund was specifically for Western Australia and Australia. If we go outside of that, then the number of disasters and misfortunes right around the world, whether or not it be in Syria, whether or not it be in Russia, whether or not it be in Argentina, will grow and grow, and we will end up having many, many of these. And let's face it, we would then back to an ad hoc process where we say, well, this overseas disaster is more important than the other. So please vote this one down and put the alternative motion. We have the money in the budget. It's slightly more generous, and it sticks to the letter of our policy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Acting CEO, do we have a policy governing this area?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, there is no policy governing it, and the reserve that's been noted tonight, in the description and the intent of that reserve, which has been adopted by Council, is for the exact words of do not relate to WA or Australia. They just talk about support for hardship from natural disasters.
Speaker 4, further Speaker 4, the motion. Councillor McCleary to close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree, policies are to be followed. There's no two ways about that. But there always is exception to the rule, and I see our sister cities and our friendship cities as part of our community. So whether or not we have that written in the policy, if I were to vote this particular recommendation down, there's no guarantees that we will be able to assist our friendship city, because the next amended motion, recommendation, may very well be voted down as well. So I see at the moment that in my basket I have $3,000 that I would like to see, and it's a very small amount, and we can amend or not amend our policies at a later date where we now have a little bit more foresight. I would like to stay with this recommendation. I encourage you to stay with this recommendation. Use your discretionary powers and allow this to go through. Yes, it's only $3,000. It's nice to have that other little $2,000 sitting out there, but I always believe a bird in a hand is better than two in a bush. So please vote for this recommendation.
Thank you. I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. 10.4.1, mover. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Seconder, Councillor Steck. Likely to be any debate? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. It's Councillor McGuell. Can I have a mover, please? 10.4.3, Councillor Steele. Is there a seconder? Councillor Steck. Any debate likely? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thanks very much. Thanks, Councillor Steele. Kelly Despotakis. You here, Kelly? Would you like to come forward to the lectern? In your application, you indicated 8.1. It's actually 10.4.4. Welcome. You have 5 minutes if you need it.
Thank you. I've briefed the agenda. Basically, in layman's terms, people bought because it was an estate. We do understand that there is no rules for estate anymore. So by law, there's no such thing as an estate. It was advertised in an estate when we bought. I believe that falls under the fair trading and not so much the Land Administration Act.
Yep.
Also, it's got down here about changing the suburbs, because half of our Ocean Close is Withers and the other half is Usher. Don't think the residents mind that. We just want our entry statement back. It was taken down for maintenance and we basically just want it put back. The other point was that it was on an owner's private retaining wall. Well, I have a statement from Barbara Watkins of 320 Ocean Close, and she's happy to have it there. She rang to get it fixed because there was a couple of letters falling down, and they ended up coming and taking it away, and we never saw it again. I have a lot of supporting documentation for, at Flyers when we first bought into the estate, the land flag that was part of selling the blocks, and many more documents that people put in my letterbox to support this. Also in the agenda it does mention the word private. They don't really like to have that word, and if we were to have it put back it would just be called Ocean Close, and we would be happy with that. As far as maintenance go, I do know that City of Bunbury do maintain the Mindelong Heights estate still, and there's other estates like Victoria Heights, which technically is Glen Iris, but it's still got their entry statement. There's one down Washington Avenue called Brookwood Estate, which is technically Usher. Basically, we're just saying, look, it was taken down for maintenance, and can we just have it replaced? If it's not fair and reasonable to request residents to finance it, I know it doesn't specifically say that there, but I'm sort of reading between the lines with that. Sort of feel like we're being discriminated against a little bit, because you do maintain all the other entry statement signs, and yeah. They have also mentioned making a whole new wall, but Barbara Watkins is happy to have it put back on her private wall if that helps with the costing. And that's about all I've got to say. Just basically, it was there when we bought. It does add a standard to the area. It's a lovely, peaceful area. We're happy to have it called Ocean Close instead of Ocean Close Private Estate, or rather Ocean Close Estate, to take that word private out if that makes the council happy. And, yeah, hopefully we can get it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Is someone prepared to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Steele, thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'd be happy to second pro forma. I just
Thanks,
would like to ask for a...
Councillor Steele. Councillor Hayward.
I'd like to move an amendment to the, as I said, if I may, or propose an amendment.
What's your amendment?
I'd like to perhaps take them one at a time, and if 3 was to fail, to ask the CEO, as it says in the note, to investigate the cost. Sorry, thank you. To investigate the cost of...
so what you're asking, Councillor Hayward, is for me to take each of these points one at a time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Rather than an amendment. Is the Speaker against this executive recommendation? Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. We've just heard from the lady from representing the entire community in that district. And I agree, it does bring some kind of element of belonging, and I believe that we should be reinstating the sign, sir.
Speaker for. Okay, what I'll do, Councillor Steele, did you want to make a comment? No. What I'll do, councillors, I'll deal with these individually. So, number 1, all those in favour. That's carried unanimously. Number 2, all those in favour. Those against. 2 against, that's carried. Number 3, all those in favour, please indicate. Those against. That 3 is lost. Councillor Ho, did you wish to move a change to 3?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to propose that the CEO investigate the cost of reinstating the sign.
That's the Ocean Close sign, not Ocean Close Private Estate. On the location offered tonight.
Yes, on
On Barbara's
Barbara's Wall.
Wall. We'll get something a bit more scientific than that, yeah. Councillor Steele seconds that. Any debate? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Okay, that's where we're at. Thank you very much. 10.45, someone prepared to move this one, please. So, Councillor Cook, seconder. Councillor Smith, any debate likely? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously, thank you. 10.46, Mr Veen. Roger.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and councillors, thank you for the opportunity. Mr and Mrs Fazo bought this property with the intention of establishing a home-based business as advised by the City in March, April of this year, and at that stage gazettal of the new scheme was underway, and when completed the intention was to establish a dedicated medical centre. When the planning application was lodged with the City, it included 3 consulting rooms and retention of the accommodation. During the development process, the gazettal was provided, and the issued development approval in August of this year approved the development as a medical centre. After approval, the documentation was compiled and included the overall proposal and the inclusion of 2 additional consulting rooms and a pathology area. It was done this way to show the whole proposal and indicate all the intentions to the now approved medical centre and gazetted area. In doing so, this meant that the original DA was amended because of the additional consulting rooms, which there were 2. An application was then lodged on September of 2017 as an amendment to this, and that's before you at this stage. When the amendment was advertised to the neighbours and adjacent parties, some concerns were raised. These were taken on board, and the amendments to the parking and site and intensification of the landscaping area was undertaken to help with those neighbour concerns. The council officers at the time advised us then that they would then personally approach the concerned neighbours and discuss their concerns and outcomes. And we thank the council officers for undertaking that on behalf of Mr and Mrs Fazo. Mr and Mrs Fazo have worked hard to ensure that their concerns, parking, landscaping and the like, are fully compliant, and want to ensure that no one is to be inconvenienced by this. The issues of road speed, which is another one of the concerns, is not only of concern to the neighbours but also to Mr and Mrs Fazo, as any reduction in the future would be supported. It is anticipated that the practice will accommodate 3 doctors, 2 nurses, 2 receptionists and a pathology member. If a fourth doctor were to become on board, then this would not happen for between 18 and 24 months. Opening times are anticipated from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday to Thursday and extended to 8 p.m. on Mondays and Fridays only. There is no other medical services in this growing area, and on that basis we would seek approval for that minor intensification of 1 additional doctor and pathology member to this already approved medical centre. Thank you very much.
No, we don't have questions.
No,
when there's another speaker? Yeah. Rebecca Olsthorne, is Rebecca in the audience? Welcome along. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. We've lived on Victoria Road for quite a long time now, and we're all too aware of the traffic issues. And while the amendment adheres to all the regulations, etc., etc., if you actually attend the property in person, you can see the traffic issues are quite profound, regardless of whether there's the 8-second gap or anything like that. And the added traffic is just, it's going to be a safety issue. It's going to cause just a lot of problems. So the cars actually, they fly over the hill at a tremendous speed. They're not always going at the speed limit, and they don't generally slow down right up until they hit the roundabout. And when you can't actually always see the cars coming over as well, so often we will try and get out, and then next minute, you know, you've got a car like right up the back of you, and they've had to fully slow down. And with the amendments, it's just going to add a lot more. It's going to add a lot more problems because the cars were going to be backed up, and there's pedestrians going to be there because of the increased stuff that's going on there, also, another issue is that it's the only through road from either end, and there's a lot of trucks on the road. So, and they're coming through at a lot of speed. And trucks, they might not see the cars pulling out once they come over the hill, and they don't slow down very quickly. And it's also a very narrow road. So whether or not I sort of question whether it can actually handle the amount of traffic that will see that's going through. So I just see it as a little bit unsafe at this point. Even my nana, who lives just up on opposite Woodley Road, she has installed, I suppose I'm going on to another issue now, I'm going on to the fact that there's going to be a lot of noise disturbance and a lot of it's going to affect, because of all the noise, my nana has installed roller shutters because of the disruption it's caused her, and so potentially, you know, that's why should we have to do that because of a proposed amendment. But also the entrance is, the original proposal was on the opposite side of the property. The amendment has moved it to right in front of our driveway, and it's already quite impossible to get out as it is. We struggle on a daily basis, particularly in the mornings and things like that. Also the other issue is the lights. Because of the extended hours, the lights will literally just shine directly straight into the bedroom and straight into our living area. So it will make it, quite hard to have like a peaceful, hard to have peaceful enjoyment, hard to have the same sort of living standard. Also another family member of mine has asthma. So with the increased traffic and the fumes and everything, it may make it hard for her to actually live there. So we sort of feel like it's more ideal to have it moved across to the other side. And also if it was moved to the other side, they'll be able to see the cars coming over the hill. Much more. They'd have better visibility. So it'd help with the traffic as well as just not be straight in front of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For listening to
Okay.
me. Thanks.
Councillor McCreary, you had a question.
To be sometime in the future, and I'm wanting to know if it's going to be widened, and if there would be, if this were to go ahead, this particular development, would there be a possibility of a slipway through there? Yes, that's a slipstream.
Okay.
Is that what they call it? Thank you.
Yeah. In the report on this matter, the indications are that at the moment there's 6,500 vehicles per day using it at the moment. That's as of December 2015. It's probably increased since then. But the road at the moment can cater for vehicles between 15 and 20,000 per day. I'll put the question to the acting CEO, who might direct it to the Director of Works and Services, but that the land in Glen Iris to be developed into the future, there's some 600 odd lots that'll be created there. When that's done, there'll be a need to widen Victoria Road and modify it, but let's get some technical advice. Thank you.
And I think the Director is most appropriate to give that technical advice.
Mr. Harris, thank you.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. There is an intention for that road to have some work done on in the future. When that is to be determined yet. I believe we've got some work planned in the long-term financial plan, but I can't tell you exactly off the top of my head when that is. But that would be sometime in the next 15 years. But certainly as the development goes in out there, there'll be requirements for the road to be upgraded and probably widened as part of that, would be part of the scope of the works.
Thank you. Can someone move the executive recommendation? Councillor Steck, Councillor Hayward, Councillor Steck, Councillor Hayward.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Certainly very thankful for the local residents coming in and sharing their story about Victoria Road. I think we all know that it's a road that is problematic in our city, and there is some work in the background going on, as has been alluded to hopefully sort some of those concerns out. The reality is with this medical centre is that it was already approved previously by the council. The landowner has a right to develop their land, as we understand. And I think that some of the things the city's officers have put in place in terms of even the trading hours have been limited, and so that some of those things hopefully will not be as negative as potentially was perhaps outlined. So I'm hoping it's going to be a much better experience for the neighbours than they think it may be already. So I'd encourage councillors to support it. Thank you very much.
Is there a speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. Those against? I think one against. That's carried. 1047, Councillor McGraw. Mr. Dave Prosser from Merge Design. As unfamiliar you are to this chamber, you have 5 minutes, Mr. Prosser.
Thanks. Thanks, councillors, for letting me present. I'm speaking on behalf of Merge Design and on behalf of the owners. So on behalf of the owners of Lot 575, I'm going to ask council to consider amending the motion before you to remove item 17. All other conditions before you are acceptable. Lot 575 is a 7-unit site, but we've only chose to design and hopefully build 6 units on the site. The 6 units have been designed to accommodate the beachfront feel. Rather than overdeveloping the site, we've chosen to just keep it down to 6 because we love the look of the beachfront as much as you probably do. Part of the coastal strip along Ocean Drive has an R40/60 zoning, which allows a 2-metre setback for this particular lot. The proposed 7-metre parapet wall is set back 4.8 metres, so it comfortably fits the context of the zoning, and again without overdeveloping the site. In the report before you, the officer has made the following comment: the impact of the proposed development on the local amenity still needs to be measured against the existing and proposed streetscape context. So I ask you, if council want to see change on the beachfront and redevelopment, then there must be a level of disregard for the existing R20 older style dwellings along the beachfront when you're comparing them to our R60 contemporary dwellings. Otherwise you'll never see change along there, and if that's really what council likes, you really need to take that in consideration. The development doesn't particularly set the precedent that every property along the beachfront should be built on the boundary. I'm not of the opinion of that either. But because of this, this design is site-specific because of the truncation on the block. It's one of the challenges when faced with a truncated site. We've really had to push the whole lot over hard onto that boundary just to maintain that 4x2 and open space feeling. Putting the parapet wall on the boundary also opens up opportunity for the north lot. If it ever gets developed, and possibly will be, it gives the opportunity for the developer to do a mirror image against our parapet wall. I should also note that the landowner to the north did not object to this proposed development during the public comment period. As redevelopment occurs on the Ocean Drive Strip and it continues in the coming years, we feel that the current proposal will be the norm and set a positive example for the future developments. Seeing as I'm halfway through, I thought I'd be running out of time, but a further item that could be considered by council to remove, by my personal opinion, is item 11. Whilst I note that this is a scheduled fee of the city and part of an adopted policy, on this occasion I object to this fee and condition on the basis that there is no footpath on the property, nor there is the one to propose to be on the property. And the existing footpaths in the vicinity of the lot are in A-pass condition and do not need replacing. It is my view that it is unfair for the owners to fund the installation of approximately 40 metres of footpath in the area, to an area that would be likely no benefit to the future residents or owners of this property. I've got to ask you, if council really are open for business, a review of the existing red tape costs for developers should be initiated. The City of Bunbury should offer incentives for developers instead of fees and policy if they really want to see growth. If council were to amend these conditions as such, they may see an increase in development, which will in turn increase the value of land and therefore an increase in rates received. This could in turn fund footpaths. In conclusion, councillors, we lodged this DA on the 29th of June. We have been very patient and worked well with staff. Our designer at Merge and the city planning staff have worked well to bring it up to this stage, and again I would ask you to appreciate your consideration to remove item 17. On behalf of the owners, we'll respect any decision made by yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm prepared to move the recommendation. Councillor Steele, is there a seconder? We can deal with the item 17 through this course of debate, but let's get this debate moving. Thank you. Councillor Steele, did you wish to speak? Did you wish to speak, Councillor McCleary?
I think Mr Prosser made some valid points. I'd like to go to point 11 and make an amendment, if I may.
What's your amendment to 11?
Just to put that we put in a variation clause so it can be discussed with the developers when there is an appropriate footpath already in there. I don't believe we should take it out altogether because when developers are developing different areas, that's really important. But I do understand that there are times when that perhaps should be the discretion of the executives whether that particular item is placed in there or not. So I was just wondering if there was words
Okay.
for that.
I'll take that on board during the debate. Is there a speaker against this? What I'll do, councillors, there being no speaker against. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Hayward.
I was just going to ask a quick question in terms of how you intended to deal with this. So
Yeah, I'll
happy to
explain
speak
that.
against 17.
I'll explain that.
Okay, thank
What
you.
I intend doing is I'll ask for voting on all of them apart from 11 and then 17. I'll deal with then 11 and then 17. Everybody relax with that? So, so approval subject to all conditions apart from 11 and 17 at this stage. All those in favour? That's agreed unanimously. Clause 11, those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Clause 17, all those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's lost. Sorry? Yeah, I got that. So that's lost. So, councillors, we have then approval subject to removal of clause 17. That's carried. We good with that, Jamie? Yep. 10.4.8, Councillor Steck declares a financial interest. Thank you, Councillor Steck. So I'm prepared to move the recommendation. Councillor Cook, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an old item that's come back, so basically this is a technical issue, so I'd urge you to support it and we can carry on with this project.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Steele. Uh, 10.5.1 requires an absolute majority, so I'm prepared to move that. Councillor Steck, Councillor Steele, is it likely to be any debate? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Go to item 14. Councillors, can I have someone move that recommendation, please? Thank you, Councillor McCleary, Councillor McGuinness. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And 15.1, can I have somebody move that? Thank you, Councillor Hayward, Councillor Cook. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're now moving behind closed doors. Thank you very much.